Hello and good afternoon. I'm Shailley Singh, Senior Vice President of Product Management and Global Programs at IAB Tech Lab. And thanks to IAB Europe and the Interact team for inviting me here today to talk about the relevance of standards in digital advertising and to talk about Tech Lab 2021 priorities. Why standards are important? Because literally they are in our mission to develop foundational technology and standards. Okay, that was a joke. Um, it is because standards enable growth and trust in digital media ecosystem. That's why our mission is to engage a global member community to develop shared resources and benefits and foundational technologies that create the efficient base for innovation. And we do this by being a neutral, collaborative, transparent, and nonprofit organization. Our aim is to allow all the companies in our ecosystem to transact programmatically in a transparent and frictionless marketplace, be it on connected television, mobile devices, cross-media video, audio, for example, podcasts, or desktop devices. And to answer the question about why standards are important, it's if you take a one look at our industry, as represented here in this Lumascape for Convergent TV, you will see that thousands of companies come together to provide different services and different functions and enable an efficient and effective marketplace. The one thing that they need to do that is interoperability. So just like we are used to a connected life as we've been living and working from home, and being using Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and USBs to seamlessly connect to devices from thousands of different manufacturers. Similarly, the digital advertising standards provide the same kind of interoperability and quality and trust in the quality of partnership. What that does is that helps companies reduce the product development cost, increase their speed to market, reduce the risk of product rollouts, and integrating with other partners, and that fuels market innovation in return. So the first reason for digital standards to exist is to improve interoperability and the quality and the trust of quality in the partnerships. The second reason has to do with transparency. In an open web, we collaborate in real-time bidding that requires that we have complete trust in the partners that we work with. And to create that trust, we need a level of information disclosure that comes through transparency. And standards provide that transparency for buyers, sellers, marketers, and publishers to perform their different functions. So the second reason for standards and importance of standards is the transparency that they provide and the trust they create in the marketplace. Some of our work, as you can see, has been very well adopted. That's kind of the third reason is that we actually solve real problems. And that is exemplified by the work and its adoption. For example, ads.txt has been adopted by millions of websites and apps. Sellers.json has been adopted already by thousands of sellers. Open Measurement SDK is now available on over 2 billion plus devices. And not to mention the Transparency and Consent Framework, which is kind of the default implementation for GDPR in Europe and elsewhere. So we solve real problems. The standards solve real problems for addressing identity, data, and privacy challenges, improving brand safety and reducing ad fraud, delivering a great user experience to consumers, and being able to measure that experience, and then creating the efficiency and effectiveness of the programmatic transactions. And we do all of this work in coordination with IABs across the globe. We provide the technical standards and the protocols, the software and tools that are needed, and the compliance programs. IABs complement that by providing the education, research, policy, and best practices of business practices, which together form the basis for proprietary innovation built upon standards that provide the interoperability to reduce your product costs and improve speed to market, that provide the transparency so that you can trust your partners and actually solve real problems. So with that, I'll come to the priorities for 2021. Given the pandemic year, and the change in consumer habits, as well as the directions taken by the governments and the technology platforms over the last couple of years, the 2021 priorities could not be more clear. So we've identified cross-media growth and connected television, privacy and addressability, ensuring transparency and security of supply chain, and developing measurement infrastructure as our priorities for 2021. And specifically what we are trying to do in these specific areas is, one is to ensure healthy growth of connected television and cross-media programmatic video, supported by our current standards and developing new ones where there are gaps. The second area is to preserve the key use cases of addressability and measurement and attribution, supported by more efficient implementation of privacy laws and regulations through the global privacy platform, and then making sure that the industry as a whole is trusted through the implementation of the accountability platform, and promulgating consumer choice and consistent communication of those choices across the supply chain. And this is being done with further changes in the back end, like ensuring the security of the supply chain by authenticating parties that are participating with time-tested cryptographic methods, further enhancements to reduce fraud and increase brand safety, and then informed disclosure about the data practices within the supply chain, as well as working on ensuring that we are taking our measurement infrastructure to go cross-screen and cover all the areas, as well as improving the podcast measurement with the technology guidance and the compliance services. And then that leads us to going into more specific details about each of these areas and what we're doing in 2021. The first one I want to address is privacy and addressability. So we've been hard at work, our members have been hard at work for the last 1 year since we announced the Project Rearc for privacy and addressability. We've seen a number of solutions and approaches, which kind of makes it look like very complicated, but our members have been able to distill all that information that we can actually make viable bets on what the future looks like, but still grounded in the original principles of privacy by default, consumer choice and transparency, and the accountability towards the industry. So what that translates to is that there is no silver bullet. We have to prepare a portfolio of solutions that should be able to address a range of scenarios. But the good part is that all of these boil down to one simple use case, whether the advertiser and publisher audiences can be linked or not. That is whether you have a unique user ID available that you can link, or you do not have that. So based on that, there are three kind of major buckets that all of our transactions would fall into. And those are, first two of those are the ones where there is no linkage available. The first one is completely unlinked anonymous users. And for that, we have defined things like contextual and seller-defined audiences, or first-party based targeting. The second one is where the browsers or the operating platforms have stepped up and provided some technology to provide a more aggregated view, popularly known as cohorts, or another word for that is differential privacy. So they provided these methods which happen in the browser or on the device. So that's the second bucket. And the third bucket is the linked audiences, where a user has authenticated themselves through email or phone number or other methods, and have consented to share that information for advertising purposes. And that's the linked one-to-one audiences. So to cover all of these scenarios, we introduced earlier this year 4 documents that cover all of these scenarios. One is the first one was the seller-defined audience and context signaling in a programmatic transaction. The second one was to cover the linked audiences as best practices that companies should follow when they have user-enabled IDs or user-enabled tokens available. And as part of that, we recently announced that we'll be supporting the Unified ID 2.0 effort that has now been donated by Trade Desk to the industry. The third document was about a global privacy platform to make the implementation of the various regulations that are being promulgated across countries and regions to make them more efficient and more effective implementation of that. And last, but I think the most important one is to instill trust in our industry by implementing an accountability platform that ensures that the parties in our industry or the companies in our industry are using the information or the data from the user in a responsible manner. So that's kind of a quick snapshot of the latest progress under Project Rearc and the effort that we have undertaken to ensure that the industry has a smooth path in this transition to a portfolio of solutions. Coming back to programmatic, in every programmatic execution, several partners come together to execute a transaction. Publishers work with SSPs, SSPs work with exchanges, exchanges work with DSPs, and DSPs may in turn take services from other providers. For all of that to work together, besides the interoperability, what they also need is to make sure that they have enough information about each other and be able to trust and verify that information. To support the industry in that effort, we've created the Transparency Center. And in that, what we're trying to do is bring together all the metadata information from the different systems and whatever is publicly available into one place. And we've divided that into 3 different buckets. One is the compliance programs, which is the certifications that companies go through from Tech Lab and from other industry bodies like AAM in US or IAB UK Gold Standard. So that's one bucket. And the second bucket is actual adherence to our standards like the supply chain standards of ads.txt and sellers.json. And the third one is another problem, that is to be able to uniquely and holistically identify a company operating across different advertising systems. So that's the third bucket, being able to do a business identification of a company. We're making this available in 2 formats. One is all members can join and log into our Transparency Center application and search for a company in a browsable data tables. And that's free to members. The second one is an API access where you can programmatically download this data refreshed on a daily basis and ingest it into your advertising systems and make decisions based on that. And that is an API available for an annual subscription. One other simple thing I wanted to talk about was the supply chain validation, which is part of the Transparency Center, and it's available now. Is a service for publishers to ensure that their ads.txt files are properly updated. They have taken care of the all the information that's there on all of their sellers, and it matches that information. This is a service that will do a daily check and then provide notifications to the publishers about whether they have clean validation or whether they have certain alerts or mismatches that they can come log into the system and correct and take that and update their ads.txt files, which in the next run, the very next day would get updated. So that's about the supply chain validation service that we've launched recently. On the measurement side, like I said, our goal is to have full cross-screen coverage by 2021. And as part of that, we are going to be relying on our Open Measurement SDK efforts to achieve that. So Open Measurement SDK is a single SDK that we created that an app publisher or a website owner can integrate, and that provides consistent, scalable measurement to the third-party verification providers. It allows the supply side to be able to work with all the business, all their advertisers and buyers, and replaces the multiple proprietary SDKs that they need to maintain. And as part of the OMID API, it standardizes the signaling of the measurement for viewability and impressions. So this was a project that started about 3.5 years back. It's one of our first actual software projects. We started with mobile apps covering iOS and Android devices, and then we moved on to web browsers, added web browsers at the end of last year. And this year we hope to add connected TV capability with TV OS, Android TV-based devices, and Roku platform, and potentially others. So now looking at the programmatic side, I did want to touch upon a new product that we're launching this year called the Programmatic Guides. So this came about as a result of a lot of the questions we used to get from companies about, how to apply this use case, which standard should be used for solving this particular use case, and how does this standard work in the workflow. So we created this concept of programmatic guides as explainer that covers all of the use cases, defines all the audiences, who's supposed to apply which use case, and then goes into details of solution and implementation guidance. We envision this to be a living document. So as soon as a standard is updated, we are going to make sure that the programmatic guide that is relevant for it is updated accordingly. And we hope to release 4 programmatic guides this year. The first one is coming up in Q2, before end of Q2. That is the connected television and the cross-screen video guide. And then in Q3, we hope to release 2 more, one for brand safety, one for ad fraud, and then round up the year with the guide for privacy. I did want to touch upon 2 other small projects that we have undertaken this year. One is the buy-side transparency that we have, that the specification is out for public comments. This is kind of similar to the sell-side transparency created with ads.txt, sellers.json, and supply chain object. This one has 2 specifications, bias.json and demand chain object. And this will help publishers and sellers manage malvertising, control the ad quality on their websites or apps. And we hope that we'll get good adoption of this too, and help sellers create the demand path optimization that they need, just like the supply path optimization that buyers look for. The second one is something we launched a little while back in support of the Apple's CAD network concept. We've done 2 things here. One is we have introduced extensions to OpenRDB so that you can actually use the SCAD network ID within a programmatic transaction. And the second is creating a repository of SCAD network IDs where all the attribution partners who have SCAD network IDs can come and register. And then we will provide a list to the app publishers to download all of their partners' SCAD network ID in a format that they can easily include in their app for proper attribution. It's free for app publishers to download. There is a very small fees for owners of SCAD network IDs to be able to maintain the SCAD network IDs on in our repository. So with that, thank you so much for listening. I just want to conclude with why standards are important. One is interoperability. Second is transparency. And third is they solve real world problems for us. And hope you enjoyed the session, and all the best for the rest of the Interact, to the Interact team and everyone else. Thank you once again.